Hello and welcome to Bottom Line, your enlightenment campaign talk show. It's 3 years since Francis Ben Kaifala Esquire was appointed Commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission. The Commission has taken center stage in addressing the issue of graft across the country with favorable rankings from the MCC Score, Transparency International and Afro Barometer, with huge local involvement in the fight. Tonight we'll frame and prime the last 3 years of the country's youngest anti-corruption commissioner. Welcome to Bottom Line, Commissioner Kaifala.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kapua.
It's always been a pleasure having you here at Broadcasting House.
I love to be here.
Well, you too can join the conversation by joining us live on Facebook at SLBC TV channel 31 or by SMS to 030-022-639 030-022-639. My name is Joseph Egbinda Kapua. Now, Commissioner, let's remind ourselves about the brief ceremony at State House 3 years ago when you were appointed Commissioner, and then when you had to subscribe to the oath before His Excellency the President. Just take a watch.
Against corruption is a serious one. Our country has suffered since independence to date. Our rankings in various international indices are not favorable when it comes to the areas that matter most. Corruption is one of the most embarrassing one of them. Today I have been given this opportunity to see how best I can join the conscientious effort of this government and the people of Sierra Leone to change that story.
Looking at that clip there, it was more or less like a young student leader, if you like. So you see how times have actually changed. 3 years old, we now have commissioner, even the stature and all of this. But then on a more serious note, being appointed commissioner 3 years ago, today, I mean, what thoughts and emotions come to mind, I mean, when you think about the announcement on that fateful day in June 3 years ago that you've been appointed the country's commissioner?
Yes, I mean it was quite a journey getting there. I remember I had just completed my second master's degree in the US, and I was called upon to come back and lead the fight against corruption. I got here. A lot happened behind the scenes before my eventual appointment. But actually, the actual appointment was a great moment. I remember when it was finally announced by your good self on SLBC, and then the social media erupted and many people welcomed the appointment. Young people particularly were really ecstatic about it. And I felt like they were putting on my shoulders a lot of pressures because of how they felt about corruption and how they wanted somebody to come and really take on the fight to launder the image of the country. So it was a great moment. It's a great moment. Even thinking about it now makes me feel that atmosphere.
Also your initial, if you like, visions, I mean, from that moment, probably the first year, probably in the next 2 years as it may be, have you met them if at all?
You have the video, you saw the video, and that is why when people are criticizing, and sometimes many people, I tell them, go back to what I said before I was appointed. My vision was very clear. It was to launder the image of the country and to position the country favorably in all global indexes. I said it clearly at State House. It was the only promise I made, and how I was going to engineer getting there was now left to what I did once I got to the ACC, working with the government, working with the people of Sierra Leone, working with my very good team at the ACC to realize it. But I don't need to remind you that it took only 2 years for us to trailblaze in all global indexes. And it's easy to go over them. For example, the MCC scorecard at that time when I made that speech and promised at State House, we were at 49%. Today, as I sit here, we are at 81%. It's the highest ever. Last year, we were the only country in the world that was chosen to develop the compact because of, in the middle of it is our seriousness in the fight against corruption. The data is startling. What we are doing is amazing. We have jumped 12 places in Transparency International scorecard from 131 when I came in to 117 where we sit now. Afrobarometer measured corruption to say that in 2017, corruption prevalence was 70%. Today it's as low as 40%. No matter what the index is you look at, Sierra Leone is performing favorably. It means we have delivered massively on the promise that was made. And I particularly feel honored to have been given this opportunity by the president to do this and giving me the support and being part of the journey to ensure that we get to where we are today. We are by no means out of the woods, but trust me, if I look at that speech and look at where we are today, I can tell God thank you for what we have done for Sierra Leone and where we are heading presently.
On comparative basis, what do you see as the biggest accomplishments since your appointment?
I think the biggest accomplishments really are not things that are mostly seen. You could say the number of convictions, for example. We have one of the highest conviction rates ever in the fight against corruption in the world. Our conviction rate is over 95%. That could be seen as an accomplishment. But I am aware that fighting corruption is really 20%. It's 20% about the people, but it is more 80% about the systems and processes. So the biggest achievement we have done really is the fact that we have developed systems. We have integrity management committees in more than 96 MDAs in Sierra Leone, and we have systems across the board that are helping mitigate and reduce corruption. So that is the biggest achievement really in our efforts in the fight against corruption. But you could also say the trailblaze that we are trailblazing in all global indexes. It's 20% about the people, but it is more 80% about the systems and processes. So the biggest achievement we have done really is the fact that we have developed systems. We have integrity management committees in more than 96 MDAs in Sierra Leone, and we have systems across the board that are helping mitigate and reduce corruption. So that is the biggest achievement really in our efforts in the fight against corruption. But you could also say the trailblaze that we are trailblazing in all global indexes could be something we should celebrate.
What's the favorite part of your leadership?
My favorite part is
what excites you most?
Is when I get to commune with the people, when I go around, when we have the town hall meetings, when I work with students in public lectures, when I go to this community and people engagement. It's my favorite part. I love working with the people, listening to them, hear what they have to say, and of course doing things according to what their aspirations are and watch how they react to it, how they welcome it. It's my favorite part of the job, and I'm really enjoying doing that because I see that the people are family behind me right across the country, from Mongo to Falaba to Kwedadugu to Bond to Daru to Penembu to Kwendu, wherever you go. We are working with the people, and it's really working very well for all of us.
What's the best, if you like, best part of the leadership advice that you've ever received?
I think the best leadership advice I've ever received came from the president himself. He said that you are a young man, you have a long way to go. You have to keep focused. This country, a lot of things will be thrown at you. People come at you, and you face challenges. But just keep focused and do what you have to do, like posterity judge you at the end of the day. I think it's the best advice, and he has given me a lot of focus and made me really develop a lot of thick skin in the middle of doing this, and trying to focus on the results and see what I can achieve for the country.
Has your leadership style changed since your appointment?
I think my leadership style has gone through transitions. True, really, because as you do this, I was about 33 years, 34 years when I was appointed. Today I'm 37 years. you have learned a lot, you've had experiences, you've worked with other people who are more experienced than you, and that has built you into the man that you are today. I think if I go back to where I was and where I am today, I can say that there has been a lot of education along the way and experience gaining along the way, which has really built me into who I am, and I think that it is a good experience.
Now let's look at the basis of your administration. I mean, from the point of view of the commission itself generally. I mean, one would see that generally or usually the commission operates on three-pronged approaches, as the case may be. One is to fight corruption, one is to prevent, and there's this aspect of education and what have you.
Yes.
Let's start with prevention. I mean, as a means to fighting corruption generally. Talk to me about the steps that you have taken since your appointment insofar as preventing corruption is an issue.
Like I said, the fighting corruption, a lot of people think that it is about people. People are greedy. They want the good things of life. They want shortcuts in life. They want to get everything they can get. So a fight against corruption that focuses on people is problematic, because corruption is 20% people, but you can solve it by 80% systems and processes. And that is where prevention comes in. They say prevention is better than cure. So the systems really to do what we call systems and processes review. We do what we call corruption risk assessment. You assess. Look at SLBC, for example. What are the risks of assessment here? You look at in an institution like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. What are the corruption risks there? You do those reviews, then you go ahead and identify those reviews, and then you develop policies and framework that mitigate. You eliminate monopoly. You make sure that power and decision making is not concentrated in one or two people. You eliminate what we call opportunities for corruption. For example, where people have access to cash all the time, you change it to check-based system, to things that leave what we call accountability trail, audit trail. You remove the opportunities for corruption, and of course, you ensure that you also remove the incentive for corruption. What makes the person corrupt? Is it because he's not getting good salary? Is it because he feels justified in what he's doing? If you remove those concentrated in one or two people, you eliminate what we call opportunities for corruption. For example, where people have access to cash all the time, you change it to check-based system, to things that leave what we call accountability trail, audit trail. You remove the opportunities for corruption, and of course, you ensure that you also remove the incentive for corruption. What makes the person corrupt? Is it because he's not getting good salary? Is it because he feels justified in what he's doing? If you remove those three things through a systems and processes review, you would have reduced corruption very heavily, and it has nothing to do, it has very little to do with the people who are in the institution. It's about systems. It is systems that fight corruption, not really people.
Do you see public education as an effective means, in fighting corruption?
Oh yes. In most countries, fighting corruption, public education is not emphasized, particularly because of how advanced the countries are, how educated people are. But we are dealing with a country where the illiteracy rate is above 70%. So we are not there yet. So public education is really a huge part of what we do. I particularly believe in public education, because when you go out, you meet people from the young children to the elderly, to the chiefs, to the elites. You engage them on issues of corruption, you'll be surprised how much they learn from it, and you're surprised how sometimes they have misgivings about it. In most places, people don't even know what really is corruption, and also they put undue expectations on us because they do not, even the most educated people. I sometimes I'm surprised how much you do not really understand what really is corruption and what you can hold people accountable for, particularly within the framework of the anti-corruption. So public education is really useful across the board.
How's effective have you used that tool?
Oh yes, we've used it very well. I mean, if you notice that I have different approaches. So for example, I do a lot of media engagements. I do a lot of public engagements. Wherever I have an opportunity to really send the message I go. I do a lot of engagement with young people because we have a policy within what I call to build the Sankara dream, is to make the young people to understand the issues and be ready to confront them. Knowledge is power. When they understand, they can act on it. They can do something about it. So I do a lot of public lectures. I do a lot of educational engagements. But beyond that, we go down to the other people who probably are not in public institutions. They do not watch television. We go. We have the court barriers. We have had court barriers in every rural area in Sierra Leone, from Bont to Mafujong to Karine to places in the north where probably you would think that Mongo, one of the farthest places in Sierra Leone. I have gone personally and had town hall meetings there. We have gone to the south. We've gone to the east. We've gone to the far east as far as Kwendu, where we sit down with people, commune with them, communicate on the issues of the fight against corruption, listen to them, collect feedback, and sometimes also educate them on what we are doing, where we are heading, and how their support is always useful. So public education has been one of the most powerful tools we have used in the fight against corruption. And it is very useful because when people come to do surveys, these surveys where we are doing well, it is those very people that they ask, what do you think about the fight against corruption? There are misunderstandings of the issues. Get into the surveys if you do not from time to time engage them and let them understand what you are doing, and of course to also measure their expectations.
Now, Commissioner, is the number of cases prosecuted and probably even the number of convictions obtained the best way of assessing the success of the fight against corruption?
No. Most times that is where, particularly in Africa, we are getting it wrong. People are excited about arrests of individuals, prosecution of individuals, convictions in court and all these things. And we are doing that very well because we understand it's a very important part of the fight against corruption, particularly in terms of perception. But I have again said, and I'll say it again, that is a fight against corruption that targets the person, that targets the people. It can only account to 20% of the success of the fight against corruption. The 80% of the success against corruption does not target people. It targets systems. It targets operations. It targets your preventive measures. They say prevention is better than cure. That is more important in the fight against corruption as it is important to the health of an individual. The English usually say that an ounce of prevention is better than tons of remedy. That is the message they're sending you. So whenever you prevent, for example, if you set up systems in the ACC that reduce corruption risk, that reduce everything that has to do with corruption, you don't have to prosecute or arrest anybody. You can sit down, in fact you can go to sleep. That is how countries of the world have been able to solve the problems of corruption. But that requires serious investment and requires a whole government approach to fighting corruption. It is not about the Anti-Corruption Commission. It's not about particular institutions that form the cluster in the fight against corruption like Audit Service Sierra Leone. It is a whole government approach to fighting corruption, for the government to invest in preventive measures across the board in the public service, and that will help in the fight against corruption. So arresting people, prosecuting them, taking them to court, that is a fire brigade kind of fighting corruption. You come with the ambulance and sometimes the house is already burnt before you put in fire, and people will see you that you put the fire out but the house is burnt. So the real strength of the fight against corruption lies in investing in prevention. Now we have as a country to invest in systems, in processes. If we don't do that, we can continue to score the goals, but they are only short-term goals. We have to invest, and that is not about ACC. ACC does not have the resources to ensure that there is preventive measures in NRA, preventive measures in every public institution in Sierra Leone. It's a whole government approach to solving the issues of corruption.
The question is how? How is it done?
How is it done?
Yeah.
It's investment. The government has to first of all study the system. For example, if you take Botswana, that is what Botswana did. Botswana brought in experts. Some of these experts, one of them is paid $1 million for a month to help you deploy systems. You deploy performance management systems. You deploy reward systems. You make sure that your infrastructure is audit proof. If anybody touches public money, there is a what we call an audit trail that leads to him. So it is easier to detect corruption and easier to punish. It is really about investment. It is a whole government decision making that
the resources we have, instead of going for short-term gains, things that will bring us popularity now, let us invest in reducing corruption.
Are we positioned as a country for that, do you think?
I think that the country does not have the resources to be able to do that now. It's very expensive.
Is that a fly in the ointment and the fight against corruption here?
I think that I have to be realistic about it. After doing this for 3 years, we have made a lot of gains, we have made a lot of successes, particularly because of our posture and of course of the support that we are getting from the government, and of course the government's own posture as well, and involvement in the fight against corruption. Really what we have done is exemplary in Africa, and we are being praised everywhere. Tomorrow I am presenting to the entire Commonwealth of our successes. I don't think there's any country in Africa that has been this successful in the fight against corruption within a short period of time. I am doing that presentation at 11 tomorrow to the entire Commonwealth from across the world, whether it's the Caribbean. What I am trying to say is we can build on it by investing in systems and processes. And I have to agree that I have sat down and looked at the investment, the government portfolio that has, and I really have seen the problem. I know the solution. But you know when they say the monkey wants to box and the hands are short? This is the situation that we all find ourselves. We need to...
I will not let you go away with that. What's that solution, Commissioner? The solution to the problem that
the solution is to hold a lot of things constant.
E.g.?
For certain development things that we are doing that are short-term goals, we are leaving the buckets to be leaking whilst we are investing on those. If we hold those things constant and really invest in systems and processes, which across the board we see the system, we'll be able to generate more revenue, and with more revenue we'll be able to invest more into other things. But as we stand now, the government is always under pressure. It wants to invest in the fight against corruption. Oh, a bridge has broken there, we have to build that bridge. Oh, there education. There are so many things that the government wants to do at the same time, and it does not really give them that opportunity to invest. If you look at Georgia solved the issue of the fight against corruption by investing massively.
Talking about the investment, Commissioner, talking about the investment, should I be listening to you now? Should I be pessimistic about the real success, I mean, in stamping out corruption in the country?
Oh, no. Don't get me wrong. What I'm trying to say is that we are successful with what we are doing. First of all, if you look at it in terms of prevention, I have told you that we have over 96 integrity management committees in public institutions. Okay? When it comes to prosecution, we have over 94% conviction rate. Okay, our public education drive is one of the massive engagements across the country, and of course right now as I speak, and I'm sure you are aware, when the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law did the survey about people's perception about the fight against corruption, they asked ordinary Sierra, have you heard about the fight against corruption? Do you know what the anti-corruption is doing? Over 92% said yes. When they did that 3 years ago, it was 19%. So there are a lot of things for us to celebrate.
All right. Now
there are a lot of successes. Let me just anchor on this. And we don't have to be pessimistic. I am always saying that we have brought the country thus far. Trust me, as I speak to you now, when the president promised in parliament that he was going to make corruption unfashionable, oh boy, we have done that. People are afraid. Across the board. I'm not saying that we have eliminated corruption, but they know that the level of impunity that used to exist no longer exists. Some people look over their shoulders. They are being careful. But this is not the time for us to focus on them. This is not the time for us to seal the system, so we don't go back to 49% where we were in 2017. So we don't go back to 70% corruption prevalence according to our full barometer. We are 40%. We can seal it there and reduce it to 19%. So all I am trying to say, on the 3rd anniversary of my being commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission, prevalence according to our full barometer, we are 40%. We can seal it there and reduce it to 19%. So all I am trying to say, on the 3rd anniversary of my being commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission, I am saying and I am calling on the country to invest in prevention. We have brought the country thus far to avoid it from going back to where we have taken it. Based on the promise that was made on the 28th of June in that office that said we will launder the image of the country to make sure we perform better indexes, we are delivering on it very heavily. I'm sure the president is very proud. You've heard his speeches. He makes a lot of reference to this. But we have to invest to make sure that we do not go back again.
Let me invite your attention to another issue that has to do with the judiciary, essentially. I mean, you'll agree it is an important component in the fight against corruption. What steps have you taken to ensure that the judiciary is on board as a key player in that fight?
As you know, like I said, we recognize that people are very happy when the judiciary is the outcome of the work of the judiciary is there. I mean, we have convictions in court, we have huge fines that are imposed, people call for custodial sentence, and I think that is very important. And I continue to encourage the judiciary to be very firm and strong when it comes to sentences, fines, and of course we should impose custodial sentence. What we did was to make sure we set up the Anti-Corruption Division of the High Court, which focuses on our cases, and that has been going very well. Our prosecutions are going very fast. We are getting a lot of convictions. Since I have been there, we have not lost more than 3 cases at all, and this is 3 years now. But we have won
how many prosecuted, do you think?
About 51 cases. We have won over about 47 of them, and we continue to win. And you see that recently we've sent more indictments involving the high, the low, whatsoever sector of society. We have indicted people, and the cooperation for the judiciary is very good. The Chief Justice particularly is very interested in the fight against corruption. I have engagements with him. His judges that have been appointed to sit in the Anti-Corruption Division of the High Court are doing very well in their own way. All I am encouraging them is to know that they have to increase the fines when there is a conviction. They have to be a little bit firm with the way their posture. I have always had a problem with their posture. They are people go for anti-corruption cases. They want to go on holidays. They easily get bail and all those kinds of things. If you want to send a strong message to the fight against corruption, your posture, the way you deal with the case in court, has to reflect. And they are doing very well, but they just need to improve on that.
Should the posture be emotional? Is
the posture should lack emotion. They should make sure that they should know that the country is at war, and they are gatekeepers of that war.
But they are acting within the law. I mean, they have a law.
No, they are acting within their discretion. It is their discretion to give bail or not to give bail. It is their discretion to impose a fine or to look at this man because of their look at some people who just charged people at EDSA for stealing 6 billion euros within 1 year. 6 billion euros. And we are not getting electricity in our homes, and we are grumbling. But if those people go to court and they do not get the right punishment imposed on them, that is not about the law. It is about the discretion of the judge. You can see the aggravated circumstances.
There is a lot of discretion, Commissioner.
Yeah, it provides the discretion, but it gives you the backbone for you to act on it, and that is why it gives you a limit. It says you can sentence to minimum 50 million euros, but it leaves it open for you to sentence to 1 billion euros. It says you can sentence a minimum of 5 years, but it leave it open for you to sentence to 100 years. Let's start sentencing people. They are sentencing people for sexual offenses for 10 years, 15 years. Every day we are having headlines. Now people are 35 years. They are sentencing people to 60 years imprisonment. Why can't we have the sentences coming in for corruption? I think we have to take the fight against corruption as seriously as we feel about it. So if the sentences continue to be the minimum, then there's a problem there.
All right. Now, one of the challenges, I mean, we all know we have these specialized courts for the anti-corruption cases and all of these things. You just mentioned special judges now. I mean, say by the Chief Justice was ensured that they have now special courts for anti-corruption matters, which is a specialized courts in a way. But you will also notice that one of the challenges with these specialized anti-corruption courts, at the high courts generally, is the fact that the courts at appeals level and also the one at the Supreme Court level are not specialized insofar as anti-corruption cases are in issue. So you will find out that most of the cases or most of the decisions are likely to be overturned.
But that is the problem. I am pleased to tell you that since I became commissioner, none of the convictions that we have had has been overturned. In fact, there has only been an appeal in our cases. Only 2 cases are appealed. The Shares Moses matter is under appeal. They went to the Court of Appeal and lost the case in the Court of Appeal. They have filed an appeal in the Supreme Court. We are arguing currently in the Supreme Court. All other cases, when the lower court gives a decision, and that is the change. It's a shift from what used to happen at the ACC. You remember, there was a very good commissioner there called Abdul Cole, and he got a lot of convictions. Most of them were overturned in the next 3-4 years on appeals. So I wanted to see what was happening there. But trust me, they are not even appealing against our judgments. Our decisions are not appealed because of the quality of evidence we take to the courts. And of course the quality of the decision is coming from this specialized courts. Nobody is daring to appeal against it. In fact, if you look at it, many people are pleading guilty in our anti-corruption cases more than ever before. So it tells you that there's a revolution happening with the fight against corruption. And of course I can tell you that one of that is the quality of judges that are making the decisions, and of course the quality of the prosecution that we are doing and the evidence we are taking to court against them. If you appeal, you are wasting your time, and I can assure you
the ACC under your tenure has also entered into a number of civil settlements with individuals to repay monies, that have been actually deposited into the consolidated revenue fund. Can you explain the basis for this?
Yes, of course, the UNCAC, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, provides that when you are fighting corruption, you should diversify the fight against corruption and approach it from 3-pronged approach. That is the criminal approach, which is what really used to happen in Sierra Leone. There was too much running to the court. But it also says you should use civil approaches to fighting corruption, and they particularly recommend what we call a non-conviction based asset recovery. You can go after the asset without going to court. Okay, and of course you should use the administrative approach. What we have done, that UNCAC is ratified by Sierra Leone, by the way. So that is part of our laws in Sierra Leone. So when I became commissioner, I realized that our focus of the fight against corruption was too court-based. We were losing at all fronts. In fact, it was not a respected fight against corruption, because a fight against corruption that goes after the person and not the asset is a weak fight against corruption. You can get all the convictions you want. You can get people sentenced to what you want. But what about the money they stole? What about the houses that they built? What about the cars that they got? If you don't go after them and get them back, you are a weak anti-corruption fighter. So when I came, we decided to go after the assets as well. And I can tell you this, in 1 year, we have already gotten almost half of what was collected in the 18 years existence of the ACC before I became commissioner. By the time we got to 2 years, we have doubled that. As I speak here today, we have collected over 31 billion euros in cash from the corrupt and giving back to the government. We have collected houses, hotels, vehicles, which we have handed over to the government.
Commissioner, you may have collected a lot of those.
Yes.
But is civil settlement actually a deterrent to fight corruption?
No, that is the point.
So some people even say it's just like a bandage to the wound.
But that is the point, that because they do not understand. When you go after the asset and you take the asset away from the person, for example, we have a case now where one of the people are settling. They want to settle and we are selling their house to recover the money that was stolen. If you sell that man's house and he becomes poor in society, he does not have a home to live in, you go into his bank account, the little money that he has kept there, you take everything from him, you make him poor into society. The message sent to it is the biggest public exhibition that you can have. That is what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore. His best friend was corrupt. He stripped him of everything and put him back in society, and he was walking barefooted in society, and everybody was saying, most of these people who are corrupt, they go to churches, they go to mosques, they go to places where they are respected, and people do not know that they are corrupt. But now we are exposing their corruption by putting that press release to say they are corrupt and saying that we have collected billions from them, and they go back in society. How do they look at their pastor? How do they look at their reverends? How do they even go to the workplace that they used to work before? It is one of the most effective tools of fighting corruption. We have been focusing on the wrong things, and you hear people say all these things all the time. Oh, it is not a deterrent. What do they mean by a deterrent? There is nothing more deterrent than making a man poor. by making him go beg his friends to collect money to go and pay to the ACC, and some of them don't give him, and the ACC is after him until they take away the last penny from him. Any fight against corruption that uses all these approaches that we are using, including the deterrent, I'm telling you, we are charging people to court and convicting them. We just charged the 6 from SLBC, 7 from SLBC, including the head of the institution. We just charged 9 from EDSA. We are combining various approaches to fight against corruption that is succeeding for the country. I think that is really the focus.
Can you assure the public that the individuals asked to repay the monies are actually paying in full?
Of course, in fact, that is the bottom line. You pay in full. We will never take from you what you did not steal. In fact, most times we take more. We take what you stole and we take more of it. So,
do you take interest?
Yes, the law now says that you have to pay a minimum of 10% interest. We have amended the law, remember, 2019. Which now says that you pay, in addition to whatsoever you stole, a 10% interest. So you see, we are winning on all fronts. And these things are really what it takes to be able to change the fight against corruption.
Do you monitor the monies paid into the consolidated fund just so they are not further misappropriated?
No. To change the fight against corruption.
Do you monitor the monies paid into the consolidated fund just so they are not further misappropriated?
No. In fact, what we did was the government set up a special recovery account at Bank of Sierra Leone where these monies that we receive go, that's where we transfer it, and they are purpose driven. So for example, if it is to be employed in the healthcare sector, we make sure that is done. The student loan scheme that is starting, 8 billion of that money that we have been collected has been allocated to the student loan scheme. So we are using the money that we are collecting from the ACC to give hope, to develop people, build a diagnostic facility, invest in student loans so that more people can be educated. What more can you do for a country than that? You take money that was lost to corruption, you use it to invest and build the people. That is what the president has promised, and that is what the president is doing, and we are very happy that they are focused on that.
You just identified the various gains that the country has made in the areas of the MCC scorecard, transparency, international, the corruption, perception survey, and like. What goal have you set yourself for the 2020-2021, if you like, insofar as the scores are in issue?
I think we for example, in the MCC score now, at 81%, really all you can try to do is to maintain it. And that is the goal there, to make sure that we do not go back to where we used to be. In the Transparency International indexes, we have been climbing gradually, steadily. From 131, we are now 117. My goal is, before I leave the ACC, Sierra Leone should move to plus or minus 80. In the global indexes of the fight against corruption, which is really a respectable place to be. And the way we are going, we could get there, like I said, if we invest in prevention, because we have really sent the message. We have made corruption unfashionable. We have educated the public to understand the ills of corruption. We have tried to deploy systems in place, but it's now really a question of investment. And once that investment is done, with proper audit trails, you do what they call, you kill dog before dog, let dog know say die day. We strengthen our laws. The judiciary starts imposing 25-year sentences, custodial, for people who are corrupt, instead of giving them the minimum that's prescribed by law, and then we will see where Sierra Leone will be. I can assure you, that thing people say that Sierra Leone will never change, it's a joke. Sierra Leone can change very easily.
Are you a fan of perception indexes?
It just requires consistent action, and they know that you mean business. If I am a fan of perception indexes,
the perception.
Oh yes, I am a very big fan.
Do they reflect the reality?
I am. In fact, let me tell you something. Most like perception is the reality. Perception is more important than the reality. If, for example, you are wearing a white shirt and most people around you think that it is grey, trust me, there is nothing you can do about it. They believe it is grey. You can say whatever you want. So it is what the people think. It is what they believe that matters. You have to manage it well. If you do not manage it well, it will wreck you. It will bring down governments. It will bring down statesmen. It will destroy people. It was perception that killed Jesus Christ, because they felt that he was not the Messiah. So you have to manage it well. If you manage perception well, it will be balanced with the reality on the ground. So for example, we are convicting people every day. We have the highest conviction rate. But if everybody in Sierra Leone believes that the ACC is losing all its cases, and if people come to do surveys, they ask them, say ACC is losing all its cases, which should become more important? The fact that the data shows that we are winning more cases, or the people believe that we are not even winning a single case at all. So I am a big fan of perception. I believe that if you bring the perception along, the reality is easy to fall into place.
The program is Bottom Line. It's coming to you from Broadcasting House here in New England. We will now go for a short break and we'll again engage the Commissioner on his tour across the country, engaging people, engaging the local community about the fight against corruption and how that has impacted on the country, or the very fight itself, or probably what he intends doing as we move along. The program is Bottom Line. My name is Joseph Ibinda Kapua. I want to show you how it all went in different areas: Kabbalah, Kono, Bo, Kenema, the island in Bond, and other areas as the Commissioner traveled. We'll talk on that after the short break.
Somebody who has gotten judgment in his or her favor that has not been paid, and they think that it's corruption. Bush fights. I have won my case that this bush belongs to me, but the chief has not taken steps for me to get it. So it's an array of issues that deal with them. They are not interested in the grand corruption issues that really we discuss mostly in Freetown. They are more concerned about the things that touch their personal lives. The roads, the bridges, the culverts, the chiefs, the chiefdom councils, the district councils, how they are interfacing with them. If they feel marginalized, they will say that we are marginalized because all development is going to that other chiefdom, it's not coming to us. So it's those kinds of things you talk with them, but in the process of it, you really send the message of how serious we are about the fight against corruption. And I must tell you again, they really appreciate what they are doing across the country. They will tell you that yes, anti-corruption, we are hearing what you are saying. We really hear your public education people who are here. They will call them by names. They will identify them by names. They will identify cases that they have referred to our regional offices that have been dealt with. So it tells us, one thing I got from this is something I had always suspected, that Freetown, which most times we think is the entire Sierra Leone, is only 1.2 million people. But there is a 4.8 million people out there that we have to touch and connect with, and we have to go for them. And that is exactly what this tour did, and it was really one of those. If I have to look back at this stage as one of the things that I have done, which I thought really impacted the lives of the people, these tours are one of them. It sent a message, it made them to have visibility of the fight against corruption, and they felt appreciated that I could go there and sit with them. They could touch. You saw them dancing. They could hold me. They could hug me. We went to Kwendu, for example. I spoke Kisi to them. They were shocked to hear me speak Kisi, just to introduce, and that was to make them see that I am your son, because my mother comes from Kwendu and I learned Kisi during the war.
Was it in Freetown, Kisi, or?
No. I learned during the war. We went as refugees in Guinea, and I was there for a little while, and in that process I assimilated Kisi, and I could speak it very well. I speak Kisi very well. So firstly they were shocked to see me speak Kisi, but it made them accept more because they identified me as one of them, and of course they raised their issues, and they were. So it's really a fulfilling thing. We go to places like Kabbalah, we go as far as the villages, to the Wawa Hills, sit down with them, They bring polio, I don't drink polio, and they will drink polio around me, and they will have my water, and all will be dancing and singing. It's really something which
Let's talk about the public lectures. We also had about invitations even within and outside the country to address communities about corruption. Nigeria and other areas you traveled to talk to them about corruption and probably to present Sierra Leone's situation. How has that impacted, and what picture does that send from our end?
Firstly, when it comes to these public lectures here, we are talking about the next generation of leaders, people, students, the university community. I have gone to many of the universities, from Jala to Frabe College to Port Loko to Makini, Unimac, all these places I have gone. Tomorrow, on Thursday, I will be at the Canadian College in my 91 to address them, and the young people are buying in. They are following, they appreciate, they want me. Some of these people, they practically come to the commission and practically will have to kneel in my office to say, Commissioner, you have to come and give us this public lecture. We are dying to hear from you. We want to see what you have to say. And it's the way I package these messages and deliver it to them. They are fascinated by it. They want to hear more of it, and it is our approach to capturing the minds of the young people at this stage so that we can employ it well for the good of the country. But beyond that, what we are doing in from across the world, particularly Africa, on the anti-corruption effort we are doing in Sierra Leone, and they are fascinated and impressed by the results that are being produced in Sierra Leone. And of course they want to hear, what is this model? In Sierra Leone we have a model of the fight against corruption. What is this model? They particularly tell me, Francis, you have to speak about this more so that other countries in Africa can employ it. It's working in Sierra Leone. It should work. So for example, when we talk about the non-conviction based asset recovery, they tell me, we have never seen a situation where people voluntarily pay money. How are you doing it? How will people come and give you billions of leos? The corrupt are coming to say, yes, we stole, here it is, please forgive us. How are you doing it? How can we use that and export it to Angola? How can we do it in Malawi, in Kenya, in Uganda? Is something that we are doing, and how is your formula doing? So I give a lot of talks and public lectures on this, and like I told you, tomorrow I am addressing the Commonwealth Conference on Sierra Leone's models of the fight against corruption. And it's not only me. Our president was invited recently to address the entire United Nations on the fight against corruption. That is a position of respectability that Sierra Leone is now placed. We are now known as a model and symbol of the fight against corruption.
Let's come back home, Commissioner. I mean, aside the tour to the regions and other areas, aside the public lectures, what steps have you taken to get MDs in the country on board?
I have said that our national anti-corruption strategy involves taking a whole government approach in fighting corruption. And what we have done is to establish in every ministry, department of agency, I'm sure they have come to SLBC, to set up your integrity management committees. So it's like a mini anti-corruption commission in your institution by your staff, who make sure that they remind everybody about the fight against corruption and to hold them accountable. Six ministries, departments and agencies across the board in the country. It's the largest ever, and it's really working well, and that has helped to minimize corruption, because sometimes, like you rightly said about public education, people don't even know. They do things that are wrong, that are corrupt. They are not aware that it's corruption. But these integrity management committees help. We have also worked to do what we call systems and processes review in most MDAs that are high corruption risk, and that systems and processes review is meant to minimize and reduce corruption. So these are how we are working with them. And I'm glad to tell you that when Afrobarometer measured recently, corruption prevalence in the civil service has reduced from 80% to 35%. That is a huge reduction in the civil service across the board in the country. National Revenue Authority is another area where corruption prevalence has reduced from about 60% to nearly 31 and 32%. So these are all really short-term gains that we have had that are not really heralded by people, but it is really significant for corruption to reduce in the public service from 80% to 32%.
Now let's also turn the microphone to our viewers and probably those following us on radio through the text messages. This one here is, curbing corruption is not a one-man job. The entire government, above all things, should be actively involved. This is from Jonathan T. Boyma. I'm watching from Maryland, Ben. I'm so proud of you. This is from Elino Hansels. Mr. Commissioner, a senior prison officer is standing trial in magistrate courts for allegedly stealing mattresses meant for prisoners. Please pay attention to that matter. The fight against corruption is a collective one and requires a patriotic and nationalistic action. Now is the time. This is from Joseph Blackie. To what extent is attitudinal change of the public service a must so that huge government investment is systems and processes to prevent corruption achieved and to achieve the desired results? This is from Salia. Commissioner, when you talk of prevention of corruption, especially through systems or systems, number you see on the screen, 030022639. 030022639. You may want to respond to a few concerns.
Yes, I think most of them are complimentary, so we appreciate what they are saying. But the last question that you read is really the most significant one, in that it is asking what is the role of these other institutions. Now, the Anti-Corruption Commission has an anti-corruption strategy. We just adopted a new anti-corruption strategy for the next 2 years, and that anti-corruption strategy emphasizes a cluster approach to fighting corruption. A cluster approach in fighting corruption is not about the Anti-Corruption Commission. It's about every other institution that is working within integrity management. So the text there is spot on. He identified audit service, HRMO, other institutions like the NPPA, who are in charge of procurement, and even the Ministry of Finance. It's a cluster that has to come together, and all of us have to be in sync. We cannot be acting in cross purposes. The audit service alone cannot be acting in cross purpose with the ACC. The ACC cannot be acting in cross purposes to audit service alone. We all have to have one vision and direction, and we all coordinate together. And I'm also happy to tell you this.
that we have set up a high panel of that cluster, and we are meeting on Tuesday under the auspices of the coordinator in the MCC. I am working with Madam Day Kroma, and we have set up these auspices. The Vice President is going to chair that meeting on Tuesday for us to be able to work together to be able to cleanse the country of corruption. And it is not about the ACC alone, it's not about the service alone, it's about everybody acting in that regard. But generally, yes, I'm happy that all the textiles are making reference to prevention. If I leave this office today, I want Sierra Leone to remember that the fight against corruption is not about who is anti-corruption commissioner. It is not about who the anti-corruption commission arrests or prosecutes or investigates. It's about the systems that the country can put into place to prevent corruption. If we invest in that, if it happens whilst I am there, I would say I am very grateful. But if it does not happen whilst I am there and I leave and somebody else comes in, we have to understand that firstly, it is 20% about people, but it is 80% about systems. And we have to invest into ensuring that. It will be difficult to do in the short term because it will take a lot of money, it will take a lot of resources. It means some other areas have to suffer. But once we do that, we'll put the country on a firm footing to enter perfectly into the 21st century and prosper as a nation.
Now, Commissioner, you challenged yourself with making corruption a very high-risk venture. I mean, one investigation that was and probably still is of paramount significance to many Sierra Leoneans has to do with former President Ernest Bai Koroma. I mean, on this same show, Bottom Line, sometime back, you had this to say, and let's have a listen.
We've been investigating President Koroma a long time. So firstly, I have to make it clear that the invitation to President Koroma is not really predicated upon the conclusions of the COI. Although issues in the COI were there, but we have to understand this now, that there are investigations which we have started, which concern and touch President Koroma, which were before us. We were just waiting for the right time to speak to him. And these investigations have gone in advanced stages, but it will be unfair for us to reach a conclusion without having to speak to him. There are also several files which have spoken to previous government officers, including the secretary to president, to him, Mr. Oshokuka. Those people have been making statements to the ACC. Okay, ministers, issues concerning various parastatals, the dealings of NATCOM, for example. There are many things when you speak to them, they will say we did it because the president asked us to do. The president telephoned and said this should happen. The president was involved somehow. To have a view on it, and we were going to do so with all respect to him. But I find it strange, first of all, he wrote a letter, a notice which basically showed that he was enraged by the invitation to make a statement. No sir, he's not above the law, and it is interest for him to speak.
Who spoke to Bottom Line on the issue. What do we know about the status of that investigation?
I think you know that going beyond that interview, we eventually spoke to President Koroma. We had 3 engagements with him, took statements from him, and the file is now under administrative work. The various teams at the ACC are working on it. So it is very much in progress. We have gone beyond the interview stage. But what that interview did was to show that no one is above the law. And of course, somebody who has occupied the highest office in the country was subjected to questioning on anti-corruption and integrity issues. That alone was a strong message that was sent as to how we are serious as a country to move beyond what used to be and to hold everybody accountable. But now the outcome of it really is that it's closing stages, but that is still with us, and we are working on it. Anti-corruption investigations can take years. In Kenya, they can investigate one case for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years. in Nigeria. In other places,
we have a special court now for anti-corruption matters.
Yes, we do have a special court for anti-corruption matters, but it's only when investigations are completed that it gets there. This is under investigation. It has not gotten to that stage yet.
As a commission, are you highly likely to discharge the threshold for prosecution?
The threshold prosecution will depend on the quality of evidence that we have, and it goes through a processing from investigations to prosecution, opinions are put in, and then it's advised to the commissioner, and then the commissioner takes final decision. And at the stage we are, it is still at that level where it has not come to the commissioner for final decision making yet.
With over 50 or about 50 prosecutions and over 45, 46, 47 convictions and all of these things, is it likely that this will be the position of the commission? I mean, what we observe at the ACC is that you seldom investigate matters, I mean, for prosecution and let them lie that way. I mean, once they get to court, the likelihood, I mean, like you said yourself, is that you get convictions. Are we likely to see it in court?
The Scorpion Squad moves with precision, the ACC moves with precision when we charge to court. And I've always said this, when I put my signature on an indictment and take it to court, I'll be surprised for anybody to work with.
Are we likely to see the honest bike rumor?
We are likely to see that case is concluded soon, but I speak with you, I'm not in a position to tell you what direction it will take, because like I said, we have processes in the ACC. It is at one of the most final stages for it to reach the commissioner yet. So, and I don't put them under pressure, I allow them to do their work professionally, to take decisions. For example, after the investigations have finished their investigation, they prepare a report, it goes to the...
Do they have timeline, by the way?
Yes, they usually have a timeline, but I can tell you that it's its very final stages for it to now come to final decision making. So it's still there, it's still there.
Are we talking about a month?
I can't give you a timeline, but I will tell you that that issue will be resolved soon.
Within this year?
I cannot tell you a timeline.
All right, I take that, Commissioner. But then another issue of concern has to do with the leak of the African press. I mean, it was all over the place. I mean, during these 3 years. I mean, this year, some parts of last year. It's alleged serious allegations against the offices of the former chief minister, you know, even the office of the first lady. How did your commission handle those issues?
Firstly, the Africanist press issue is, Africanist press is considered a whistleblower, so we are very careful in dealing with them. But we realized that we had to be a little bit more careful about it, because the Africanist press issue was mixing a lot of things together at the same time, and trying to push us in a direction that we felt we had to be careful about. So, for example, we have our mandate under Section 7 of the Anti-Corruption Act, which of course also includes the offenses that we can investigate and we can prosecute. So the Africanist press was bundling a lot of things together: claims of corruption, claims of wasteful spending, claims of abuse of resources and all those things, based on one account, which is the government expenditure. So it became difficult because they were calling all of it corruption. And we had to peel through to determine which one is really a corruption allegation and which one is just really wasteful spending or claims of wasteful spending, but it is still normal spending within the government framework. So for example, if somebody travels for 15 days and gets 15 days per diem, if you call it corruption, fine, but it is allowable expenditure within the framework or the architecture of government. So if you now say that that person is corrupt and the ACC should arrest him, no, sir, the ACC will not arrest the person. Also, most of the issues, in fact, Africanist press, the account details they got came from the audited account of government expenditure Bank of Sierra Leone. How they got access to it, they know. So they were capable of identifying that 1 million euros was paid to this contractor. Therefore, it is corrupt, but that's not how corruption works. Because 1 million euros is paid to a contractor does not therefore mean it is corrupt. We have to forensically look at it to determine why that payment was made and why, if it went through the correct processes, if it went through the correct approval systems, if it's an authorized expenditure within the framework of government. You may be unhappy about it. You may think that somebody is making millions for doing very little.
But that is not what we do. That is your emotion. That is your feeling. But to call it corruption, that is not how the ACC operates. The ACC will have to look at it. How did this person access this expenditure? Did it go through formal processes? Was it approved? Is it an authorized expenditure? Is his authority allowed to do that? Once that those boxes are ticked as correct, we cannot say it is corrupt. So when we started clarifying some of these issues, it was easy. The African Express itself started attacking us, and we were trying to engineer public public to feel like we are trying to defend the corrupt. No, sir, we are not defending the corrupt. Our mandate is prescribed by law. If you want certain things to change, for example, if you don't want the president to travel and go with Parliament, you can go and lobby Parliament to change the law. But you do not come to the ACC. The ACC does not change the law. If you think that such expenditure is in excess, 1 billion euros for president's trip to Botswana, if you want that to change, go to Parliament to cap the expenditure of Parliament. But I am not going to arrest the president or those around the president because they traveled to Botswana and were all paid per day. So it is these kinds of things that really the African Express did. And it was an unfortunate situation. We really appreciate what they are doing because they are partners in the fight against corruption. And what they were saying is important for public discourse. But when they started using it to decampaign the fight against corruption, to try to bring down the successes that Sierra Leone is getting in the fight against corruption, they were doing more disservice to Sierra Leone than anything. They made it to go on the international press to make it look like we are really not doing anything about the fight against corruption. We are just sitting down here doing nothing. But unfortunately, that is not true. In fact, we are doing a lot more about corruption than now. If you make it that because you have said that payments has been made to the wife of the president, for example, for the hands of our girls campaign, which we all know is taking place anyway. The hands of our girls campaign is one of the most effective campaigns in Sierra Leone on any social issue. If you say because money was paid to her for that and it is therefore corruption, and therefore Sierra Leone is not fighting corruption because we have not arrested and detained her, that is not how it works. It is not because we are saying that she should have a cash balance to have access to public funds. But we have said Section 39 of the Public Financial Management Act allows the minister to make such payments. And the minister said, that is the payment that I did. What do you want us to do? If you want that law to change, go to Parliament and lobby Parliament to change it.
All right, Commissioner. On another note, recalling your press release on this issue, as a commissioner, you also tried to widen the net to factor in the office of the former First Lady. Where are we on that?
We have already put out a press release saying that, in fact, for the past 20 years, First Ladies have been receiving billions of loans every year. Even the medical was paid from government funds. And that includes the wife of the former president, President Kroma. In Parliament alone, she will receive 2.5 billion a year.
What's the position of your commission on that?
My position on that is we are not Parliament. It's an authorized expenditure. So if they want it changed, you go to Parliament and Parliament will change it. I don't have an opinion on it. I am there to fight corruption within the framework of Section 7 of the Anti-Corruption Act. Within the framework of the offenses in the Anti-Corruption Act, which have elements. If I investigate an issue and those elements are not there, no matter what you say, I do not have the jurisdiction to do. And like I have said, the almost unfortunate fight against corruption is we have taken it so high, we have gained so much capital in it that some people want to hijack it for their own use. They want the ACC to do their bidding. They want to eliminate a minister, even when there is no evidence against him. They want the ACC to arrest him. That way he will be removed from office, and then another person who is not favorable to them can occupy that office. The ACC can never do that. The ACC focuses on the evidence and facts and the law, the legal and regulatory framework. If it's an allowable expenditure, it's an allowable expenditure. So all First Ladies have been receiving money from the consolidated fund for years. When they travel with their husbands, they receive money just like their husbands receive. If we want to change that, we change the law to say they should not receive it. They are merely the husband's wife. If they are the husband's wife, when they go, the husband should take care of them. If that is the reform, and now that reform is law, it's because this is how it is.
All right, let me have you to rest for a while and then perhaps invite again your attention to a few messages that are coming in. There are corruption. This is unclear. Malpractices, we understand. In some areas, not too clear. But then patriotic Sierra Leoneans are very happy for you and members of your team. At least people are now giving accounts of their stewardship. This is from Numa Jacob James. Mr. Ben Kaifala, according to your press statement, you said the current and past ladies have the right to dispose public funds. Have you scrutinized them on how they use funds, or are you using data from Audit Service Commission to see that they are using these funds in the right way? Mind you, these funds are from taxpayers. This is from Michael Hindove, Lavao Monrovia also. Has the fight against corruption improved service delivery to the very poor who suffer the actual brunt in the business of corruption? What roles have the ACC played in health and education areas and insofar as service delivery is concerned, and the government cash transfer programs? Mr. Ben, while availing any government or NGO service, have you been part of any type of corruption, or have you paid in any sort, I see here, to public services to get any public service done? This is from Alpha B Barry in New York. Some of the messages are flowing. I wonder if we'll have time for more messages, but I'll allow the commissioner to respond to the few that are coming in.
Yes, firstly, as always, we appreciate the public feedback in the fight against corruption, and we appreciate them. One of them asked about the same issue that has to do with the First Lady, whether we are scrutinizing their expenditure. Yes, their expenditure, and that is part of what we said in our press release, that this office which you are questioning was audited. The Auditor General did a thorough audit and made audit recommendations with respect to those expenditures. All we have to do as a country is to now focus on making sure that those audit recommendations are realized. There is no point for us to duplicate. Remember, somebody asked, how do we complement each other?
Yeah.
We cannot be acting as cross purposes. Audit Service has audited the office of the First Lady and made recommendations. As an ACC, we just need to make sure that those recommendations are realized. And they did in 2019. So these are all things that are happening that we have to work on. I was asking whether I myself have paid bribe. No, I don't pay bribe. Even when I travel internationally, there was a day when I went to Nigeria, because they don't know me. And normally when I reach to these airports, I don't, even if I have a diplomatic passport, I don't use the diplomatic line. I go and join the normal lines and the people. And then one of them was asking for money. I said, no, I don't pay bribe. And he was like, who are you? What is wrong with you? But when he saw that I was here, you just said, oh yeah, get out of this place. And I moved. But in Sierra Leone, of course, people know me. My hair sells me out very easily. And even if they wish to do so, they do not.
Is there a secret behind this high bar?
No, there is no secret. It's just here.
Is it just a matter of style?
It's a matter of style, yes. It's a matter of style.
Is it likely to change?
Not right now. Not right now. I think I like it this way.
Let me squeeze this message in, Commissioner. Please, Mr. Commissioner, when would we get the published list of those who are paying monies back to government?
Every time somebody pays money to government, we'll put out a press release with the name of the person.
It's not like a published list. I mean, probably a quarter, yeah, as a case may be.
Maybe we'll work on that, but we have been putting it out there. So if you want to know who are paying, just go to our website. It's there.
Thanks SLBC and Francis Ben Kaifala for the good job that you guys are doing to clean Mama Saloon of corruption. Please, the NGO sector really needs to also be engaged. The way they are treating issues is a recipe for corruption. This is from Alex. Continue to send your messages. Hopefully we'll have time to go through all of these the messages that are flowing in. But we have we are now about to end the program, Commissioner, looking at your 3 years in office, the highs and the lows. Talk to me about the next year. What shape do you imagine or visualize for next year? I mean, what are your next steps or your new steps insofar as tackling this is concerned?
Well, we are going to continue. We are sprinting to a finish line, and we have to finish stronger. So, for example, I have another 2 years in office. In that 2 years, the fight against corruption is going to continue to be very robust. And as people have seen, we have now shown that it is not just about the past. We have to hold the present strongly accountable. So people in the current government has to realize that they do not have a carte blanche to be corrupt. The same way we held the past government strongly accountable for corruption is the way we will continue holding those in current government strongly accountable, and to make sure that impunity does not exist and that people take their responsibilities seriously. That we continue to support the president's vision for good delivery for the people of Sierra Leone, and there will be no excuses and no explanations. We are going to continue to strengthen the systems and processes review to ensure that prevention is better than cure, and we continue to prevent corruption and to do well. We are going to continue to put in efforts for our performance in global indexes to continue to expand in an upward trajectory. We are going to also be doing continued societal mobilization and engagement within the framework of public education and outreach to ensure that the message of the fight against corruption continues to be accepted by the people, and to mobilize and have their support in pushing it forward. So the strategy continues to be either an improvement on what has already been, or to be what is already happening.
What level of political
supporting it, and that includes the team that he has around him. But of course, when you have a leader who is a visionary, who believes in the fight against corruption, who wants the good of his country, and knows that the fight against corruption is at the center of ensuring that, and he has therefore harnessed our abilities to be able to continue to produce with him standing there whenever we look back. I think that is something the country has to be grateful for, and I am personally very grateful to President Bill for his support in the fight against corruption. I've really enjoyed working with him. I always tell people that I'm the luckiest commissioner, and they say why. I said, well, I have a president who has my back and who believes in the fight against corruption. I think that is something we have to continue doing, and I believe that he means what he says. They call him the talk and do, and I hope that his promises in the fight against corruption will continue to be sustained, and as long as he's standing there, I can assure you we'll continue to only succeed in the fight against corruption.
Any updates on this issue of the Maritime Administration?
Maritime Administration, the 7 of them have been charged to court. The trial has started in the High Court. I think we can only now pay attention to that trial to see what the outcome is.
What do you want your legacy as commissioner to be?
I think I want my legacy to be a legacy that really set the country on the path of accountability and progress forever. I want people to look back at the data, the statistics, at what we did at the ACC, and know that there was once the commissioner here who really sent a message. I want them to look at the strategies that I'm using. Today, some people will not realize it. They may not even appreciate it. But I want them to look back and know that Bekafala was here, and this is what he left. I want us to continue. Already we have broken every record. Every record, whether it's prosecution, whether it's conviction, whether it's prevention, whether it's public education, whether it's indexes, local or international, whether it's surveys, wherever we have been, we are better than ever before. I want to continue raising the margin. I want to continue trailblazing in that direction, working with my very strong team at the ACC to continue to produce us of the country. So down the line, maybe when we are all old and really over coffee, we can look back and say, remember when we were having this conversation on Bottom Line and this is what we said we'll do? We believe that's what changed Sierra Leone. And that is my dream and hope for Sierra Leone.
And so prepare to go, Commissioner. I mean, indicting people, getting people convicted, as the case may be, I mean, within the law. Do you have time personal for your personal life? How do you feel engaging or moving around? Do you feel comfortable?
No, one of the thoughts of this work, really, I have lost my personal life. I don't go out, I don't party at all, I don't hang out like young men do. And sometimes my friends, even those who travel from overseas, come.
Is it for fear of your life?
See me. No, it's not really fear of my life alone, although that is part of it. But I won't call it fear. Certain positions that you occupy come with responsibility. And in my position, I cannot be everywhere. I cannot be interacting with everybody. I have to maintain that
Do you miss those chillings, those, outings?
I miss everything that a young man can miss. I remember I tell people that this position has made me feel old, but I enjoy doing it. As you saw, I was dancing with the people. I also tell that it is self-therapeutic. When I go to these journeys and I'm interacting with young people, older people, chiefs, and of course even in Freetown when we have these engagements, you see how much people appreciate what you're doing. I think that cures every other thing. But I can tell you that my personal life is really affected by it.
Do you sleep well?
Well, it depends on the circumstances, but I try my best to sleep. I think that when it comes, the work is going so well, and of course my conscience is so clear. I don't have anything I'm afraid of. That really it does not affect my sleep or anything like that. My conscience is one of the cleanest of that. But of course, the pressure of the work, sometimes I work on in other places. All these presentations that I do, it is at night, usually after midnight, that I have time to sit down and put them together. And of course it has a lot of toll on me. It affects my time with my children, it affects my time with my family, and it also affects my personal times with other people. But one good thing is they all understand what I'm doing, because what we are doing is very visible. Everybody knows what is happening with the fight against corruption. Everybody knows my engagements. Everybody knows where I am. They know when I'm in the provinces. They know when I'm in Freetown. And sometimes they say, yeah, we understand. We understand.
Do you feel threatened? Do you receive messages of threat?
I'm sure you hear them on social media. A lot of people threaten. They send audio messages. They go to my social media page. Some of them try to send message through me, through other people. And you get all people dreaming very terrible things happening to you, and people praying for you all the time. It comes with its own pressure. But I don't feel threatened at all. I think when I took up this job, I knew that it came with certain pressures from society, and my mind is made up for it. I am not threatened at all.
Is this a job that you enjoy, or would you rather there was another job for you?
No, for the time being, I believe that God put me here to do this for Sierra Leone.
Is it about belief?
It's a belief, and that belief is what fuels what I do. So I really enjoy doing it. Trust me, I enjoy being commissioner. I enjoy doing my job. And for the time being, it's the only thing I want to do. Maybe after the 5 years, we can always look forward to other things.
Your parting shots to the people of Sierra Leone as you mark the third year in office and probably the next 2 years.
Well, my message to the people of Sierra Leone is to continue to believe that better is possible. We are lucky to have a president who has given the free will for us to fight corruption, and the results are self-evident. We all know, people come from overseas, they say, trust me, things have changed. We know that there's still a lot to do, but it's not the same anymore. The way out, it used to be free for all, people wanting to be, people not even afraid to be corrupt. Now they know that there are consequences. All I want from the people of Sierra Leone is to stand behind the president and the ACC, and of course generally all the stakeholders in the fight against corruption, including those in the cluster that I have identified for us to fight against corruption. There can be no better time for us to put this country on a firm path for progress, development, and it is now. And now that we have a leadership that is committed to this, let the people believe, let the people support. Don't allow yourselves to be distracted. We can change Sierra Leone, and we can only do this when we stand behind visionaries and people who are working towards ensuring it. And if we take away all our differences, regional, tribal, political, and believe in one nationalism, patriotism, Sierra Leone will be the best country to be. And I can assure you that is what we are working on, and we'll realize it.
Thank you very much, Leslie. That's how we end tonight's edition of Bottom Line. We've had the privilege of having Francis Benkai Fala Esquire, Commissioner of the Anti-Corruption Commission, who has spent 3 years in office as Commissioner, and we'll be analyzing, dissecting his administration 3 years on. We are back next week with another edition of this program, Bottom Line. Many thanks to all of you, all Sierra Leoneans, those who followed us here from broadcasting house on television, those who joined us on our satellite, on radio, and even on Facebook. If you missed out on all of these editions, We are back next week with another edition. Probably we'll have time for a repeat podcast of this, and we'll let you know. Many thanks as usual to the producer of this program, Tilly Koma, and to all of you, members of the technical crew. Joseph Egwenda Kapo's name, wishing you all a pleasant evening. Bye-bye.
Well done.